Welcome everyone to Beth Azor's 5th annual Women in Real Estate Investing Summit. This is the Crexi Podcast, live, boots on ground, in conversation with amazing women in commercial real estate, investors, brokers, everyone you can think of, pushing the boundary and getting deals done. And today we are here with Tori Nook. Hello, Tori.
Hi, how are you, Shanti?
I'm doing so well. How are you? So good to meet you.
Me too.
So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? How did you get started in commercial real estate? Where you're from? What your story's been so far?
Sure. My history in real estate started when I was a sophomore at John Carroll University, which is a small Jesuit school in Cleveland, Ohio. And I took a World of Work class, and you figure out what you want to do. And what was awesome is being in a big MSA, they provided a ton of internships. So I started as an intern at one of the largest residential firms called Realty One at their highest producing office in Pepper Pike, Ohio. And then from there, I got a commercial internship with a big retail boutique. And then from there, my senior year of college, like in December 1999, I wound up getting hired by a firm that I was with for 13 years. And all I did was specialize in tenant rep. I leased multiple ground-up shopping centers, did a lot of land deals, and that's how I got my start. And then in 2016, I wound up starting my own company called Anchor Retail, and I've been in business now almost 9 years, and we've got 9 agents, and we've been blowing and going ever since. And I just opened an office too in Columbus 2 years ago, and we handle not just the state of Ohio for our retailers' needs and shopping center owner needs, but we also work outside of Ohio too, depending on the client, with doing a lot of master brokerage work and with listings as well.
Amazing. Spread out, you've conquered the world, going.
My philosophy is just keep going with the same tenants. Like I still work with Cavelli Enterprises, like the largest Panera franchisee in the country. I did almost 200 deals with them. And to me, I've always said this to my agents too, just ride the big horse as long as you can.
Yeah.
If they tell you to go down to South Carolina or whatever, go. Because you know their deals, they trust you, you trust them, and you get a lot done, right? Of course, you want to always get new business because nothing's forever, right? That's the thing about brokerage is you could have, again, clients like me for 20, 25 years, but it's not always the norm. So you want to keep things diverse.
Sure. And you never know, you could do a deal with somebody 1 year and then 10 years down the line, you haven't heard from them for a decade, and then suddenly they come out of the woodwork and they're like, hey, I have this project for you.
Exactly.
It's all about relationships.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm curious, in your career so far, what have been some of the most significant challenges you've faced? And how did you overcome them? Is it something about your personality, something you had to learn? Give us a little insight, something comes to mind.
Doing this for 25 years, there's stages of adversity and problems and challenges, right? So I'd say in my early career, it was people, I was blown away by the level of like disrespect people had for just younger people in the business. It wasn't just me, it was a lot of other people starting, hustling, working. Like they just have like a disrespect level, not everybody, but just always that few people that made things harder for you. They put you down because you were younger. And that was like my early career. And then as credibility age, everything levels out and things are fine. And I think the biggest challenges are probably dealing with just certain personality types. And I think we all know what that most difficult one is, and getting through and getting a deal done. But I also faced challenges too with former employers as well. And that's really what ultimately led for me to just go out on my own and do things the way I want to do them. And I think you can't depend on other people to appreciate you or your work. Like you got to appreciate yourself, and
Absolutely.
Only you're going to take yourself to the highest levels with help from great who's out there that back you.
Yes, again, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
So do you have any favorite moments or achievements in your career that you think really showcase your skill set, like your personality, things that you're really proud of that you would maybe want to share to inspire some of our listeners?
Sure. I think a big one was just going back to working with Sam Cavelli, who owns Cavelli Enterprises, is he put a lot of faith in me being only 7 years into the business. And to do the major rollouts that we did over 8 states, we finished off Ohio for him. I finished off Ohio for him, and then we ventured going all the way down into the Carolinas. And to do the amount of deals I did with him was amazing. I think another big feat for like even a woman too is the fact like I did have another very large account back in 2012. So I'm about 13 years into the business. And that account was an organic rollout for a major retailer. And I did so many deals, like in 18 months, I rolled out 40 stores. And I was able to go into the bank and pay off my mortgage, and the girls were like high-fiving me and asking me like what I do for a living. That's a big deal. That was like a big deal for me because you just never think you're really going to get that high, I think, sometimes. Yes. And then once you're rolling, like you're rolling. And I also did almost 200 deals with Dollar Tree over my career too. Oh, wow. That was an account, again, I was hired by a gentleman named Mark Hernan, who was there at the time. And again, he believed in me. And I think what I really learned about these clients that I've worked with that stuck with me and stayed with me is the fact that I always followed through for them. I always returned calls. I always got answers to them like promptly within 24 hours. And that's something like people always said is you're dependable. You get things done. If you don't have the answer, you're going to find out the answer, right? And that's all people want is someone they could trust that knows that's working and isn't seeing a squirrel and running that way, right? Like they're staying focused on what they're doing for the client. And that's who's most important. And those real estate managers and VPs want to look good and get their store counts, and that's your job.
Make them look good.
Make them look good. That's right.
Speaking of being a woman in commercial real estate, we are here at the Women's Real Estate Investment Summit. So can you talk about, owning your own company, owning your own brokerage? Why do you think more women should look into this industry as a career path? And especially as like an entrepreneur, as a business owner, what opportunities are available to them that you think maybe not enough women are tapping into?
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic question. And that's something I've started talking about a lot, even on my own social media, because number one, as a woman, my mother told me when I was in college that I really should think of a career that has flexibility because I'm probably going to plan on having kids and a family, which is something I always wanted, and I have. And my uncle was in real estate down in Florida. And she explained to me what an independent contractor was, because like back then I had no idea what the difference was between a 1099 or a W-2. And so that's what kicked off the internships I took, was when I was in that World of Work class, my mom telling me that. And so what I loved about it is I work very hard. And if you're a hard worker, you want to make the monies that you're putting into what you're doing. And that's what commercial real estate gives you, real estate in general, any entrepreneurial job where you're the owner, right? That doesn't mean it's going to give you a ton of free time. It will say once you really made it and everything, and that takes time too. But what's nice is you do have that flexibility when you have kids to if you needed to run somewhere, you can. There's no big brother where you got to report to and
You're
tell
a big brother.
Exactly. And you're controlling your destiny and your income. And so you can't blame anyone else for anything. And B, you can the sky's the limit on how well you want to do, right? And what you want to take on. Some people want a more balanced life. They could get that, but some people want an extraordinarily fantastic financial life too, and they could get that too. And for women, I always thought it was interesting that more people wouldn't get into it because A, there's a lack of them, and B, they're very good. Because I think women have the trait of being very good at being organized, multitasking, keeping everything streamlined, and people love that. And especially like in sales too, they want going back to getting things done, not getting distracted, following through properly. And I think a lot of people do like working with women because I think it gives it a softer edge. Like when I'd have guys that I'm friends with in brokerage tell me about how someone treated them, but they're not going to treat me like that, right? They're more toned, I'd say. So that's the main reasons, I think, flexibility and income.
Totally.
And freedom.
Totally makes
and freedom.
sense.
Who doesn't want freedom?
Amen.
Amen to that.
I think we all do. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And then to you, how important has mentorship and networking been in your career, especially with other women And what strategies have you found to be most effective that our listeners can listen to and take away and go implement into their lives, like after listening to this conversation?
Sure. So mentors are very important. And I've had obviously amazing male mentors that have really helped me. And then also in the beginning of my career, I had a woman mentor who at my office, which again was very rare that there is an older established woman broker. And for me, I just really watched, I think the key to your success is get in a great office environment where the best of the best are working there. And don't worry about who's mediocre. You got to watch who is the best and ask questions and really watching and listening and asking questions, because I never had a formal mentor where like me, where I hire someone, new, where they know, come sit here, you're going to listen to me talk and do whatever. But it was invaluable. And even my own clients have been invaluable. Even now, I still am constantly learning more. Like I'm calling Beth if I have a question about something, and other women I've met along the way. And I have to admit, I haven't really been around women in this industry until Beth started all of this 5 years ago. It's only been for 20 years, I really wasn't around this. In the last 5, I've met various people that are skilled.
Yeah, no, it's only been a day and some change here.
Right.
And just the caliber of people here.
Yeah, and they're from all different facets too of real estate, which is very interesting if you want to look at diversifying.
Oh gosh, yeah, and just putting some kind of deal together.
Right.
You need all those different components,
and
right?
And you do, and it's the best thing about any deal is if you're going to be an LP, not a GP, you got to make sure you work with people who you trust and have a track record, because that's where I made major mistake. And really the biggest mistake I literally ever made in business was investing with the wrong people. But I was very young and naive and didn't know their reputation, didn't know how improper everything was going to be handled. But luckily, that's not the norm, thank God. And it took me years to even ever invest with anybody again. And luckily, I've invested with fantastic people, great track record. People who are here invest with them as well, and they've proven themselves, and it's been amazing.
What makes a good partner on an investment?
Number one, you have to trust them. They got to be a trustworthy. I think personally, you're born with a high integrity level. It's not something that can be made. And I think as you get older, you're more intuitive and more in touch with people. And I think people have what I noticed with some of the most successful businessmen I've ever worked with, some of them don't even have college educations, or they dropped out because they started their companies and working. And what I noticed is they work very intuitively, like really off their gut, like the logical thinking's almost put aside with a lot of the decisions that they made. And I think that you have to have a very high intuition, emotional intelligence, as well as you got to be very good at finance and numbers too, or you're not going to do well, and they got to be organized. And what I noticed is anybody who's really good at what they do, you've seen their track record, they're very good at reporting everything that they're doing, they're open book as well. You're with the wrong people when you ask for their numbers, and they're not going to show them to you. Even though it's in their operating agreement. So that's not good.
A good red flag. Awesome. And then wrapping up, if you could go back and give your younger self, one piece of advice when you're just starting out, or maybe like a year in or so, getting into commercial real estate, what would that advice be?
Number one, get in with a really good firm that is, again, reputable. They are big producers, because the only way you're going to be able to get started, this is a long learning curve in brokerage. Like I've always said, competitors I work with, they all say that, the good ones say the same thing. It's going to take you 2 years to just get your feet wet and to start making even a little bit of money, right? It's going to really take you 5 years to be really confident and developed to take your career off from there, right? Where you're starting to make very good money. And the only way you could do that is if you're with a firm where people have so much business that they'll take you under their wing. If they see that you're a hard worker and that you follow through and you get to work and you're there all day and you're actually working, they're going to give you business. And then the next thing you know, you're going to be making 6 digits by year 3, no problem, if you follow that formula. But I think that the biggest thing from when I started until even now, and the biggest complaint for employers, is that people, they don't want to work, or they feel entitled and things got to get handed to them. And that's obviously not like how life works. And I even at my own office, the hardest worker wins, right? And they're putting the most accounts and people are calling them and asking them to help them. And then you start building your own business from there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you see anything happening in the market today? I know we didn't get too into what's going on in commercial real estate today.
Yeah.
And we can a little bit. We have a couple minutes left. But does that advice morph at all in with what the landscape looks like today? We're maybe on the upswing again. What do you see and what would you tell young brokers?
We're not on the upswing right now, that's for sure. I think personally, I went through the recession and I feel like this is worse than then because there's absolutely no new construction. Space is tight, so you don't have, I know we think all these retailers are closing, but it's not like at the level it was during the recession, right?
Yeah.
So there was still space. And what was nice about the recession is the fact that you had big Wall Street companies, like the Wall Street companies I worked with are big private companies, and they love bad times because things are cheaper, there's more space, they can negotiate better deals. We were renegotiating deals too, but it was more or less getting that the land bought, the leases done at numbers that you're not gonna get. But this time around, there isn't space to do that. Prices are still high and you can't build. So it's not easy, but it's not detrimental. You just, like any cycle, like if you're going into business or you're here on earth, like you better get used to economic swings. And that's why you work hard and you keep working hard and you don't quit and you save and invest your money properly and you'll be fine.
Forges strength
It
in times of
does.
adversity, that's for sure.
And you got to think, you got to be a critical problem solver, right? And go from there.
Yeah, love it, Tori.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate your time. Excited for the rest of the conference.
Yes.
Where can our listeners connect with you if they want to get in touch? Social, email?
Sure.
Give it to us.
You could follow me on social media, on LinkedIn. I'm Tori Nook. My company's Anchor Retail. I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook. You could also go to our website, www.anchorretail.com, or you could feel free to email me. It's tnok@anchorretail.com.